Welcome back to Mystery Vault Prime. Today, we dive into the dancing plague, a mystery that killed hundreds and still has no answer. Imagine a city where people suddenly began dancing and could not make themselves stop.
This happened in Strasbourg in the summer of 1518, when the city belonged to the Holy Roman Empire. Strasbourg was already living through hardship, food shortages, and intense social and economic pressure. Contemporary accounts also describe the summer as unusually hot, adding to an already difficult situation. Then, on July 14th, one woman reportedly began dancing in the street. Later chronicles identified the woman as Frau Trophäa, though surviving accounts are not perfectly consistent. According to the chronicles, she continued for days, repeatedly collapsing before beginning again. Neighbors watched in disbelief, unable to understand what they were seeing. This was not ordinary celebration. The movement was described as involuntary and extremely difficult to control.
Within days, other people were reportedly affected, and the strange episode began spreading.
Chronicles suggest that the number eventually grew into the dozens, and later accounts give much higher estimates.
The accounts make clear that this was not simply a festival or ordinary dancing. Descriptions speak of repeated movements, exhaustion, and people struggling to control their own bodies. Some continued until exhaustion forced them to collapse. As the phenomenon continued, Strasbourg's authorities realized they were facing something they could not easily explain. Physicians were consulted, and they interpreted the condition through the medical ideas of their own time. One explanation involved what contemporary medicine called an excess of hot blood within the body.
Medical theories in 1518 were very different. They differed from modern ideas about psychological disorders.
And their proposed response was almost as extraordinary as the phenomenon itself.
Authorities initially believed that allowing the sufferers to keep moving might help the condition run its course. In 16th century Strasbourg, a strange plague took hold of the streets, their movements under supervision. Supervised and observed, they danced through their pain.
Musicians were even brought in, reflecting the authorities' belief that continued dancing might provide relief. But the strange treatment did not solve the problem. Instead, reports describe the phenomenon continuing and involving more people. Fear spread through the city as no one knew why the dancing was happening. Some people interpreted the phenomenon through the religious beliefs of 16th century Strasbourg. Saint Vitus was associated with a tradition in which uncontrolled dancing could be understood as a form of divine punishment. These were historical beliefs of the time, not explanations established by modern medicine. As the situation worsened, city authorities eventually changed their approach.
Public dancing and music were restricted, as officials abandoned the earlier attempt to encourage the dancing.
Medical ideas and religious practices both became part of the response to the crisis.
Some afflicted people were eventually directed toward the shrine of Saint Vitus for religious healing. Accounts describe pilgrims traveling to the Saint Vitus shrine near Saverne. Historical chronicles describe prayers and religious rituals intended to bring the afflicted relief. Some accounts also describe special red shoes marked with crosses being used during the healing ritual. Back in Strasbourg, the strange episode continued to unsettle the community. The outbreak lasted for several weeks, with the main episode beginning in July and subsiding by September.
Estimates vary widely, with modern historians cautioning against treating the largest numbers as certain.
Even the number of deaths remains uncertain because the surviving evidence does not give a reliable final total. Later accounts mention deaths, including a claim of 15 per day, but this figure is not securely confirmed.
And that leaves the greatest mystery. What actually caused the dancing?
One later theory proposed ergot, a fungus that can contaminate grains such as rye.
Ergot poisoning can cause neurological symptoms, which led some writers to consider it as a possible explanation. But historians have pointed out problems with applying the ergot theory specifically to Strasbourg in 1518. There is no definitive evidence proving that ergot poisoning caused the Strasbourg outbreak. Another major interpretation connects the episode to extreme psychological stress within a community under severe pressure.
Famine, fear, heat, and social tension may have created conditions in which unusual behavior spread collectively.
This interpretation is often described today as a mass psychogenic phenomenon, but it remains an interpretation.
Other explanations have included neurological illness and several forms of psychological or social disturbance. None of these theories has been proven conclusively, leaving the true cause unresolved. What we do know is that multiple historical accounts recorded an extraordinary episode of uncontrolled dancing.
Physician writings, chronicles, sermons, and city records preserve different pieces of the story. The disagreement is not mainly about whether something happened, but about exactly what happened and why.
By late summer, the strange dancing gradually declined.
By September, the outbreak had largely subsided, almost as mysteriously as it had begun.
Strasbourg slowly returned to ordinary life. But the strange summer was not forgotten.
More than 5 centuries later, the dancing plague remains one of history's most puzzling documented events.
We know where it happened, when it happened, and what people witnessed, but not exactly why.
Was it disease, extreme psychological stress, social contagion, or something history still cannot explain?
The dancing plague left no simple answer. If you enjoy the video, subscribe to Mystery Vault Prime for more historical mysteries.